and welcome back to our YouTube channel. And today I'm here with another lesson of your English syllabus, which is lesson 8, and the title is The Snail and the poet is William Cowper. So talking about the poet William Cowper, he was born in the year 1731 and he was one of the foremost poets of the generation between Alexander Pope and William Wordsworth. And for several decades, he has one of the largest readership of any other poets. So in this poem, The Snail, William Cowper has closely observed the lifestyle of a snail and he found that the snail lives a life of solitude. So how does he live a life of a solitude? We will understand in this poem. So moving on to the poem. To grasp a leaf, a fruit, a wall, the snail stick close nor fears to fall, as if he grew their house and all together. So in the first stanza of the poem, William Cowper has described how the snail sticks. Sticks here means closely attached. How he sticks from grass to leaf and from fruit to wall. And he sticks so tightly that he does not fear from falling on the ground. And by this attitude, it seems that these grass leaves are all his family members and they grew up together. So in the first stanza of the poem, William Cowper has described the attitude and the fearlessness of the snail by which he moves from one place to another without being feared from falling on the ground. Moving on to the second stanza. Within that house secure he hides, when danger imminent betides, of storm or other harm besides of weather. So here secure means free from danger and betides here means about to happen. So if we have closely observed a snail, we see that it carries a shell on its back. So in the second stanza, the house is being referred to that shell which the snail carry on its back. So when he faces any kind of danger of weather such as rain and storm, he quickly withdraws himself to that shell, and in his house, inside his house, he feels very much secure and safe. So moving on to the third stanza. Give but his horns the slightest touch, his self-collecting power is such, he shrinks into his house with much displeasure. So in the third stanza, William Cowper has described how the snail feel very much conscious when we touch his horns. Here, horns has been described to those pair of antennae which the snail has on his head. So at a mere touch to his horns, he feels very much conscious and his self-collecting powers gears up and implements the action, and he again quickly goes back inside his shell. So when his loneliness is disturbed by any means, he feels very much, his attitude reveals much displeasure and he feels very much annoyed and he goes back inside his cell. So moving on to the fourth stanza. Wherever he dwells alone, except himself has chattels none, well satisfied to be his own whole treasure. Here in the fourth stanza of the poem, William Cowper has described that wherever he dwells here means to live in. Wherever he lives in or wherever he goes alone. He is a loner and he does not need any friends and he has no personal belongings to carry with himself. Here, chattels means personal belongings, and all he have is his body, and he carries his body and his house together, and here he lives a life of solitude, and the snail has been described here with extra sensibility, and he is very much well content in his own world. So moving on to the fifth stanza. Thus hermit-like life he leads, nor partner of his banquet needs, and if he meets one, only feeds the faster. Here, hermit means person living in solitude as a religious discipline. So, he lives a life, a person who lives a life apart from rest of the society, especially for religious purposes. And here, the snail has been described to that hermit, and he does not need any friends for banquet. Banquet here means evening meal for many people. So if he finds any evening meal, he does not need his partner or he does not need his friends. He feeds himself alone, and if he finds any partner in the banquet, he only feeds himself. And he is so much fast that he grabs the food, and all he takes is to eat by himself, and he eats so quickly that he does not allow his friends to eat the meal. Moving on to the sixth stanza. Who seeks him must be worse than blind. He and his house are so combined. If finding it, he fails to find its master. Here in the sixth stanza of the poem, William Cowper has told or described that whoever tries to seek here means to find. Whoever tries to find him is worse than a blind. Here, how worse than a blind means is this line means that the person has the vision, but no, sorry, the person has a sight but no vision. Whoever tries to find him, he is worse than a blind. Blind here means person without vision. So he is worse than a blind. And he and his house is so combined. As I have earlier told you, the snail carries its house in its house within himself. So how? As I have already described you, the cell is his house. So whenever we try to find a snail, so it carries its house together. So here the snail and the shell, it's his own house, and the snail and the shell are both together. So whoever tries to find him, he quickly finds his house. How? Because the shell is the snail's house. If finding it, it fails to find its master. So if somebody tries to find a snail, he fails to find his master. So how does he fails to find his master? Because the snail is his own master, and he is the master of his life. So whoever tries to find him, he fails to find his master. So here in this poem, William Cowper has described the solitary lifestyle of a snail, how he sticks from grass to leaf and fruit to wall, and he sticks so closely that he does not fear from falling on the ground. And by this attitude, it seems that these grass leaves are all his family members, and they grew up together. And when he feels any kind of danger of weather such as rain and storm, he quickly goes back to his shell, to his house, and in his house he feels very much secure and safe. And when we touch the antennas or the horns of the snail, he reveals much displeasure. He feels very much annoyed, and his self-collecting power gears up, and he again goes back to his cell. And in the fourth stanza, wherever he lives in, he lives alone, and wherever he goes alone. And here he is a loner, and he has no personal belongings to carry within him. He has no personal belongings to carry. All he have is his body, and he is very much well satisfied and well content to be in his own world. And in the fifth stanza, here the snail has been referred or has been described as a hermit, that which leads a life of a loner. And here, whenever he finds any banquet, any evening meal, he only feeds himself, and he does not allow his friends to feed the faster. And whenever he finds any meal, he quickly grabs that meal, and he does not allow his friends to have that meal. And here, whoever tries to find him, he is worse than a blind. Blind means a person without vision, and his house and him are so combined. Here it means that his house, the snail, and his house is together. That means the snail carries his house together. How? The shell is its house, and he carries the house with him, along with him. And if anybody tries to find him, he fails to find his master, because the snail is the master of his own life. So by this, we have come an end of our syllabus. And if you want to join us in our subject specific WhatsApp group, you can visit us by clicking svto.in/WhatsApp. Thank you.